With SRN News, I'm Michael Harrington in Washington. President Trump spoke at the Conservative Political Action Conference Saturday.
I first spoke to this gathering 14 years ago, and I won your straw poll. I didn't know anything about a straw poll. They took this big straw poll, and I won by like 27 points. And I figured, that's good. Maybe I should keep doing it, and I did. And I became president. Isn't that great? Who would think?
Mr. Trump thanked his supporters while touting the accomplishments of his first month in office. Elsewhere, the president says he may put the U.S. Postal Service under the control of the Commerce Department. He's seeking ways to stop losses at the $78 billion a year agency, which has struggled to balance the books with the decline of first-class mail. The post office was set up the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia all the way back in 1775. Ben Franklin was the first postmaster. International efforts to end the Ukraine-Russia war ramping up, even if they're not all on the same page.
There's a big week of diplomacy ahead, with President Macron visiting the White House tomorrow and Sir Keir Starmer heading to Washington on Thursday. The Prime Minister says America must be part of Ukraine's security guarantee, but also accepts European countries must spend more on defence. The Foreign Secretary David Lammy has said the UK will unveil a raft of new sanctions against Russia tomorrow to turn the screws on Moscow.
BBC correspondent Ben Wright. Israel says it's scaling up its week-long offensive in the occupied West Bank, sending in tanks to a terrorist stronghold and pledging to keep troops in place for the next year in areas where the Palestinians have evacuated. Israel's defense minister saying today that the troops will not allow residents to return just yet. The military says it's expanding the raid to other areas, and including the Jenin camps. This is SRN News.
Hi, this is Rhett Rasmussen of BestHotGrill.com. We make the Solaire infrared grills, those amazing gas grills that heat up to over 1,000 degrees in just 3 minutes to provide professional chef quality performance in your own backyard. Now, you won't find them in the big box stores. Solaire is sold only by the finest specialty retailers who recognize Solaire as the only real hot, fast grill. If you live in an area without a Solaire dealer, Solaire has the demo program where you can try a mini version of a full-size grill in your own backyard, grilling the foods you love. It's made with the same design, materials, components, and performance of the big Solaires, but in a size Solaire can easily ship to you. Try before you buy so you'll know firsthand why Solaire is the last grill you'll ever purchase. Learn more about the demo program and these fantastic USA-made grills at BestHotGrill.com. That's BestHotGrill.com, BestHotGrill.com.
While Dennis Prager is recuperating at PragerTopia.com, hear the Happiness Hour, Celebrity Guest Day, Male-Female Hour, Ultimate Issues Hour, and Open Lines. PragerTopia.com.
Just when you thought your smartphone couldn't get any smarter, now you can add the AM860 app with local news, national headlines, and commentary. The answer is smart. Adding the AM860 app to your smartphone is genius. Get it now at the Apple App Store and Google Play.
For today, sun followed by increasing clouds with a high of 72. Tonight, mostly cloudy with occasional rain late, low 58. Tomorrow, clouds breaking for some sun. Periods of rain this morning, followed by a couple of showers and a thunderstorm in the afternoon with a high of 68. Get your weather news when and how you want it wherever you are. Download our free app or visit AccuWeather.com. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Caitlin Lawrence for AM 860, The Answer.
The following program is sponsored by Bay Area Medical Can Care Clinic.
Go, Doc.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Bill, your radio MD. I got Ken with me, and we're doing a show. What a week it's been, huh? Yeah. Boy, the Trump team is going to town.
Been busy. Been very busy.
They've been busy, and Elon Musk said that his boys found 44,000 Social Security recipients who were over 120 years old or something like that.
Some were 300 years old.
Some were 300 years old. Well, that's good. I mean, they deserve some help, you know.
That's right.
Especially at that age.
Yeah.
So it's just, they're just finding more and more and more. And there's trillions of dollars that are unaccounted for. No line item accounting for any of this. I mean, how can you run a business like that? You know, you think You think that the government would have enough bureaucrats and accountants and computers and bean counters and line pickers and everything else to keep track of what happens to the money. But I remember when Katrina hit back in 2000s, the early 2000s. You remember Katrina?
Sure, absolutely.
And the federal government sent $1 or $2 billion down to Louisiana to help them clean up the mess. And I said, they'll never account for one penny of that. And I think Congress looked at it about 8 years later, and they couldn't find any documentation of where the money went, who got it. But I guarantee you, everybody in Louisiana got a little piece of it and had a good time with it, too.
Well, you know what? Nobody's going to notice.
Nah.
It really isn't going to make much difference to the average American.
No.
All this cutting. You're probably not going to even notice.
No, they won't notice it. It's like tariffs, too. They think it's going to, the Democrats are yelling it's going to push up the cost of things. No, it's not.
That's right. Yeah.
Nah, that's baloney. So it's been a real interesting week, and Zelensky has caved in. As you know, Zelensky is the president of the Ukraine, and one of the guys at the lunch table who's originally from Poland, he's critical of Zelensky, and he says he wasn't even elected. Yeah, he was. He was democratically elected in 2019, and he has not been reelected because they haven't had elections. So that's probably why Trump's calling him a dictator, just kind of pluck a nose hair and get him going.
Well, they suspended elections during the war, I guess. I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, in the United States, we had elections during the wars. So that's when FDR got reelected. Not once, but twice during the war.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, you can hold elections, and it would probably look better for Zelensky if he did. He'd win on a landslide.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know why he doesn't just do it, but there may be some logistics to it that he does not want to subject the people to at this time.
You always rally around your president.
Yeah, your wartime president, of course.
Yeah.
So last week on the 14th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, Zelensky made some really bad moves. He kind of dissed the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, and just threw the proposal for the Ukrainian minerals back in his face and was rude to the secretary. And then at the Munich conference, Vance and Rubio met with Zelensky for the mineral rights deal, but then Zelensky surprised him by saying that he didn't have the authority to unilaterally approve it. And then Zelensky publicly rejected the offer at the conference and made some remarks to reporters that were out of line and it's not in the interest of the Ukraine. What do you mean it's not in the interest of the Ukraine to make a deal with the United States? We're supporting you, baby. You make a deal.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so
you're going to give up something.
Well, yeah. I mean, this isn't charity, buddy boy. So then Rubio and Waltz got involved, and Witkoff got involved, and they all sat down with him. And Zelensky's firing back that he's being mistreated and this and that. And at any rate, so now they're going to make the deal, Ken. And that'll show you how the Trump mind works. You don't want to make a deal with me, I'm going to get you. And if you give in, we're friends again. So it's all about business. You don't take any of this personally.
Well, the Europeans may just jump in with Ukraine and stay there.
They better, because we're not going to do everything for them.
Yeah.
At some point they're going to have to learn to wipe their own derrieres.
Yes, exactly. Come on, guys.
Look, I don't mind helping them out, and I think that we need to keep a presence in Europe to make sure that the Germans and the Russians don't get into it again. If the Germans start to rearm, then the Russians are going to build up their side, and we're going to have the repeat of the 20th century. The two big wars, World War I and World War II, were basically battles between Germany and Russia to see who was going to control Europe. Fortunately, neither one really came out on top. The Russians temporarily did, and they seized a lot of the border states and turned them into communist satellites. But
And on the other side, we filled the leadership void until Europe was back on its feet again. That was the plan anyway. I don't think we were ever meant to be there forever.
No, well, I think the Marshall Plan was a short-term financial aid, but I think that the treaties we negotiated with Germany did give us the right to keep bases there probably for 100 years. And we may be approaching that in another 20 or 30 years. I don't know. I don't remember what the deal was, but certainly they have come to rely upon our presence as a protection against the Soviets' incursion. And then, of course, the Soviet Union was dismantled. Now we have Putin coming back trying to reform it. I mean, put it back together. This is what all the czars have done over the centuries in Russia. They want more land and they want more border states because they're afraid of the Germans.
Well, they do have some points there.
Yeah. But, oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it. But this idea that we invited Ukraine into NATO in the 1990s because our Secretary of State then said, "Oh, might be a good idea if you join NATO," and a lot of people jumped on that and said, "See, we just stirred it up there." You know what, Ken? A single member of the administration doesn't have the right to negotiate a treaty on behalf of the United States or NATO. So,
no, they don't. Not even close.
No, and I'm sure that I don't remember what Clinton said at that time, but I'm sure that they walked that back and said, "No, that's not right now. That's not going to happen now." Now, Ukraine's been wanting to join NATO since 2005, 2006, but that has not been on invitation from the United States or NATO. In more recent years, of course, NATO has considered letting them in, but they haven't, and they've said repeatedly, "No, we don't want you in right now. You've still got some things to settle, and you need to get your corruption cleaned up and make sure that your democracy is functioning at least as well as the German and French democracies, which are functioning fairly well, although I don't agree with the direction they're going. They are democratically elected leaders."
What about the Baltic states? How are they doing? Are they as democratic as we would like them to be?
They're pretty democratic, and
they're the most recent the most recent additions to NATO, I think, are the Baltics, are they not?
No, it's Finland and
that's right, yeah,
Sweden.
Yes, right. Sweden.
Baltics have been in for I think since shortly after the empire broke up. I think the European, the NATO's said, "Come on in," and we were all for that. So, Russia's nervous. It's surrounded by what it considers to be enemies.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. But they got to end it. It's got to end, folks. Can't go on forever.
It's not our place to take care of everybody in the world.
It is not.
No, and I've said for 2 or 3 decades now, get out of the World Health Organization. It's just a corrupt, left-wing, loony organization that doesn't do much of anything, and most of the research is done by the big countries like the United States and China anyway, and Great Britain and France and Germany, and then they just leech off of that, and they get people like Jimmy Carter to come in and cure the guinea worm infestation in sub-Saharan Africa, which probably affected a few thousand people. So we have the ex-president of the United States piddling around with something like that. Meanwhile, after FDR won, the former president Hoover, he helped the Europeans out. Millions and millions of Europeans after World War I and World War II. He organized massive relief efforts, and it actually stimulated the Democrats to implement the Marshall Plan, which, as you know, was under Truman.
Correct.
And that was led by General Marshall, who was the only high-ranking military man who was a Democrat during World War II. The rest of them were.
Yeah, if you call
Republicans, Democrats are, we don't know how to fight. We know how to spend money, but we don't know how to make it. We know how to start wars, but we don't know how to finish them. But what are you going to do?
I don't know.
I mean, you people are not that interested in the details. They want to know, what are you going to do for me, and where are you going with this next, and are you going to take something away from me? Or are you going to take my benefits? Is there food on the table? Do I have a roof over my head? I mean, these are the basic things that people want to hear for the most part.
It's the economy, stupid. It's always the economy.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that people are stupid. It just means that it's hard to keep up with all this. I mean, look at how much I have to study every week to do a show. I mean, it's 6, 7, 8 hours for 1 hour of show, Ken.
I know.
And you can't expect the average guy who's getting up and going to work and comes home tired and has a few beers and hits the hay, and on the weekends just wants to chillax. He isn't going to want to go do research like I'm doing, and most people don't have that that desire and that innate ability to sit down and read and study and do all that.
That's why we become dependent on the mainstream media.
Yeah, and then you end up being dependent on people who have a college degree and left-wing loonies, and they really don't know anything about politics or political science or science itself or medicine, and they make all these statements and assumptions that are false or not true or just stupid.
But you know what they do have, Doc?
They got the microphone.
They look good on television.
And they've got the
microphone because they look good on television.
They look good, and they're selling ads.
That's right, exactly. People are looking at them. You want to change a TV station? Don't watch it.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. You don't like CNN? Never tune it in.
Yeah, and if you really want to do something for the conservative cause, look out for what you buy and where you buy it. Look at the companies that are
boycotts work wonderfully, yes.
And right wing. I mean, Target's putting out all this clothing for transes and this and that. What the hell are they doing that for? They're not going to turn anybody on, and their sales are sinking.
Exactly. See, if you vote with your wallet, you will always make change.
You'll always win.
You'll always win. They will change. They have no choice.
Yep. Because if you cut off the money, honey, I mean,
that's what they're there for. That's right.
Look at Iran. When Trump came in his first term, he cut the money off, and they went into a tailspin. Then Biden came back in and refunded them. And look at this. They've started more wars in Lebanon, in Israel, the Gaza Strip. They've stirred up things in Syria. They're exporting terrorism and arms all over the world, building drones for the Russians to shoot at the Ukrainians. I mean, what are we thinking? What are we thinking? Or at least what are the Democrats thinking? They're not thinking. But they don't know, Ken. They've never been there. They haven't really ever seen it. They don't really study it. It's all this gut emotional reaction.
It's a hope that the best, if we treat them well, they will treat us well. It's a false hope. It just doesn't work everywhere.
It doesn't work. And, I really love and respect the Buddha, and I try to practice a lot of what he does, but it doesn't. And same with Jesus. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Good luck.
What if he wants to bomb me? What am I supposed to do then? Bomb him first? Is that the idea? I guess so. If you're going to do unto others, well, what he's going to do to me, I'm going to do to him first.
It's like a bum on the street, Ken. If you give them a $5 bill, guess what? They'll be bums longer.
That's right.
And they'll come onto your property and start messing it up and looking for freebies.
Yeah, well, thank God for the Israelis. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And once I think they got the last of the live hostages out, and I'm sure that after that they're just going to carpet bomb and level Gaza, which they should. They should. I mean, after the display the Palestinians put on in releasing these hostages and the 2 babies that were murdered. I mean, what are you savages? What are you barbers?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, we haven't heard from the Houthis either for a while. I haven't heard of Houthis blowing anything up for some time now since the Israelis hit them pretty hard.
Yeah, and I'm sure we helped out quietly, dropped a few bombs for them.
How come we never say that? We should say that.
Well, we don't want to upset.
Heaven forbid.
No, we don't want anybody upset, and we don't want to get the press upset, and we don't want to get all the sweet girls and weenies and wonks.
Now, you know what? If they behave themselves, they're welcome to join the world. That's all we want.
I'll say, take them off the map because they're not going to be able to behave themselves. I mean,
then they're going to. That's
release these all these terrorists that were at Guantanamo. Biden released them all back into Yemen. Well, they all rejoined their terrorist groups.
Of course they did.
And they're treated as heroes, and they get money, and they say, "Hey, keep working with us, and we'll give you more." And the money comes from who?
People like us.
That's right.
It was meant for food. Yeah, it was meant for some food. Yeah. Oh, well.
$1 million for transgenders in Yemen. Where do you think the money's going to go? It's going to go right into some terrorist pocket, and they'll dole it out to the subordinates.
Yeah, it's been that way for decades. I don't know. We have to do this. We have to clean this all up.
We got to. If we don't, we're not going to have a country. And like Elon said, no country has survived that's deeply in debt. And you look at every empire that has collapsed. Why have they collapsed? They went broke. Look at the Soviet Union. They couldn't sustain it. They could not sustain. They did not have enough money or enough production to continue to sustain the level of expenditures that they were putting into their military. They couldn't do it, Ken.
And neither can we. You can't. There's a limit.
There's a limit.
And I think we may be there. We probably went way past it. But
well, we'll just have to cancel the debt.
What is it, 30 trillion now? 31 trillion, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Amazing. Scary number.
It's
like $5,000 for every one of us. Is that what it is at the last number?
Oh, no. 200,000.
Was it 200,000?
Yeah.
Sure, I got that in my pocket, Doc. No problem.
So if we're going to repay this, we got to get everybody to cough up. Well, hell, I don't know many people that make 200,000, much less have 200,000 in assets.
They can sell their houses.
Yeah, they'll sell their houses. Who they sell them to? The Houthis?
No, we just give them to the Houthis.
No, we sell them to the Houthis. We get some of our money back because they'll buy it with the money we gave them.
Okay, well, yeah. Oh, well, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. What goes around comes around, buddy boy.
Now, you're killing me this morning, Doc. What finer praise for a physician, too.
So Trump's gotten a lot smarter in this second term. He removed Anthony Blinken, Letitia James, and Alvin Bragg's security clearances, among other people's. And, he's getting a lot of people ticked off. And, he took away Biden's security clearance.
I know, yeah.
Well, Biden will take it and give it to the enemy. He doesn't care. Or Jill will, anyway. I don't think Joe will know what goes on in there.
I can't see Joe tinkering with anything. Yeah.
No, he doesn't have any idea what's going on.
Exactly, yeah.
It's just Jill. And so the Ukrainians are coming to the table, and Trump's kicking A and taking names and cutting off security clearances, thank God. And, it's just something else. And to see the Europeans and the Chinese with Putin and Trump coming together, I'm sure they're going, oh, my God, we better do something. First of all, we'll drive a rift between China and Russia. And secondly, we'll stimulate the Europeans to get their butts in gear and try to get to the top. We didn't invite anybody to the peace talks, just the Russians.
I know, yeah.
So we're speaking for the whole world, and the Europeans are going, wait a minute, what about us? And Ukrainians are, hey, it's our country you're talking about. We'll get back to you later.
This is exactly what Nixon did. He made nice with the Russians, and that forced the Chinese to open up. No, yep. he made nice with the Chinese to force the Russians to the table. That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's what he did, and then it took a few years after that, but Reagan finally brought him to their knees.
Yeah,
he just said, "Hey, we can outspend you guys. Let's have
exactly.
Let's have a weapon war. Let's have let's see who can spend more money on weaponry."
It was a Star Wars plan that really scared him, I think.
Oh yeah, and that really scared him, I think. Oh yeah, and I think Gorbachev realized that the Soviet Union couldn't sustain that, and they really needed to dismantle.
Yeah, and it worked well for a while. Everybody got along.
Yeah, and then the Democrats got back in and started mucking it all up.
So we'll see. We may have to make nice with Chinese or Russians, maybe Russia, to get the Chinese in line. I'm more worried about China than Russia. So
yeah, I think so. I think that we have got to look at the Chinese as the 21st century threat, just as we looked at the Russians as the 20th century threat.
Absolutely.
So, the only way you can do something like that is to get everybody on your side. And well, how do you do it? Well, you of course you got to be nice, and you got to throw money at them. You got to help them out, and you got to make trade deals and all that.
And they have to trust you.
And they have to trust you. And I don't think any country trusts any other country 100% because, alliances shift back and forth. And what did President Washington say when he left office? Avoid entangling alliances. So now we're entangled.
That's what we did.
So that's what we did, and now we got the world to take care of. He's probably rolling over in his grave over there at Mount Vernon.
It would be great. Wouldn't it be great if the founding fathers could come back today just to get their opinion, just for like a day, just to look around, see how everything turned out? Wouldn't you love to know what they think?
Well, Jefferson wouldn't recognize it. This is not what he envisioned. Now, Hamilton, he'd come back and say, hey, it worked. My plan worked.
Yeah, part of it turned out good. Yeah.
Because Hamilton, he wanted to see us as a great industrial complex with a strong military. And that's what he wanted. And that's what he pushed Washington and the Federalists to embrace, and of course they did. And he also wanted to see us remain isolationist until we were a stronger country. We were too young, and that's exactly what Adams did. He kept us out of the World War, the Napoleonic Wars that were raging in Europe and North Africa and the Middle East and different parts of the world. And people say, oh, that wasn't a world war. What are you talking about? It was on every continent.
Yeah, well,
it was on every continent.
It was that world's war.
Yeah,
you really didn't have anything over here yet.
We had naval battles in the Caribbean against the French. There were incursions into North Africa and into the Middle East. You remember Napoleon marched through Egypt? Remember that?
I didn't know he went through Egypt.
He sure did. Where do you think the Rosetta Stone came from? It was his boys who found it.
I didn't know that either. I love this show because I learn so much every week.
I was standing outside of a restaurant in Paris years ago and started chatting with one of the waiters, and there was an obelisk in front of us, in the circle, statue, so to speak, an obelisk, a monument. And I said, hey, where'd that come from? And he said, oh, that's another thing we stole from the Egyptians. And then you know what he added? He said, well, the English actually stole more than we did.
Well, yeah, they were the colonial powers back then. They were doing it all. Yeah.
Well, yeah, France and Spain and Great Britain, they were the big colonial powers.
They were the Russia and China of their day, these guys. Yeah.
And they were doing business with the Chinese. They were doing business with the Indians. They were doing business with anybody they could do business with. Of course, the Spaniards concentrated on the Americas because of all the gold. But then when that dried up and everybody started rebelling against Spain, Simon Bolivar and all of his crew down there in South America said, we ain't going to be with you no more because y'all treating us bad. You know what he wanted? He wanted to be treated. He wanted to be treated as Spanish royalty, and they said, no, you're not. And he said, well, we're leaving then.
Well, I didn't know Napoleon ever went through Egypt. Thank you, Doc. You always expand my mind a little bit every time we do this show. You know what we need right now?
We need coffee.
We need a cup of coffee. That's right. That means we have a trivia question first. Today's question always deals with something we talked about in the first half of the show. So if you've been here since 9, you already know the answer to this one, if you were paying attention. Doc, by the way, the phone number you're going to be calling is 813-282-8283. That's 813-282-8283. And it's for a Dr. Bill, your Radio MD coffee mug. And the question is today, it's a multiple choice. Doc does not like the World Health Organization. He's not a fan. Are you, Doc?
Am I supposed to answer that? Or
yes,
are they
you
supposed
can.
to?
Yes, you can answer that one.
No, I'm not a fan of the World Health
That's right.
Organization.
Now, you called it earlier. One of these two. You called it. You referred to the World Health Organization earlier today as which one of these? A robust health organization or a left-wing loony organization? So,
that's an easy one.
If you would be able to decipher the answer, then call 813-282-8283. That's 813-282-8283. And you, first caller with the correct answer, will get the mug. Ain't that right, Doc?
That's right. And remember, you can also get me on Facebook at William Handelman. I had to move to a new site, and I'm at 727-384-6411. And we'll be right back. This is Dr. Bill, your Radio MD.
Call now.
Did you hear Michelle Tafoya interview Al Michaels? What about Bob Costas? Hear her fascinating take on those two and more on the Salem Podcast Network.
With SRN News, I'm Michael Harrington in Washington. The president says he may put the U.S. Postal Service under the control of the Commerce Department. Mr. Trump is seeking ways to stop losses at the $78 billion a year agency, which has struggled to balance the books with the decline of first-class mail. The post office was created during the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia all the way back in 1775. Ben Franklin, the first postmaster general. Israel says it's scaling up a week-long offensive in the West Bank, sending in tanks to a terrorist stronghold and pledging to keep troops in place for the next year in areas where Palestinians have evacuated. Israel's defense minister said today that the troops will not be allowing residents to return just yet. The military is expanding its raid into other areas, sending tanks into the Jenin camps. It launched the offensive into the West Bank on January 21. This is SRN News.
Dr. Bill for Bay Area Medical, located at 6399 38th Avenue North in St. Pete, 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. Full-service clinic with x-ray, heart imaging, ultrasound, stress testing, and minor surgery. We provide quality health care in a warm and friendly atmosphere. We are multilingual, well-trained, and certified. Most American insurance and new patients accepted. Bay Area Medical, home of can care, 727-384-6411. 727-384-6411.
Dr. Bill here. With social distancing and sheltering in place, telemedicine is here. Bay Area Medical Home of Can Care Clinic offers telemedicine for new and established patients. You can see me without an in-office visit. Schedule an appointment at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. When it's time for your appointment, type this web address into your cell phone or computer web browser, doxy.me/Bay Area Med. A cell phone works well and is all you really need. For computers, you need a web camera and speakers. We'll give you this address when you call for your appointment. We accept most insurances and travel insurances. Canadians and visitors, please call your travel insurance company for an authorization number prior to the visit. Copays and deductibles apply. Self-pay rates are available. Just ask. We accept credit cards, PayPal, and Stripe. 727-384-6411. 727-384-6411. Dr. Bill here. My friends at St. Pete MRI and Sleep Diagnostics are your best choice for state-of-the-art MRI, CT, and sleep studies. Quality unsurpassed. 25 years experience makes St. Pete MRI my go-to imaging center. Self-pay rates are competitive and out-of-pocket cost a fraction of a hospital. Conveniently accessible from both sides of the bay at 750 94th Avenue North, St. Pete, near the Gandy. 727-577-2220, 727-577-2220.
At Simple Path Retirement, we are not bankers or broker-dealers. We are registered independent advisors who have the ability to focus on your best interest. Visit simplepathretirement.com.
For today, sun followed by increasing clouds with a high of 72. Tonight, mostly cloudy with occasional rain late, low 58. Tomorrow, clouds breaking for some sun. Periods of rain this morning, followed by a couple of showers and a thunderstorm in the afternoon with a high of 68. Get your weather news when and how you want it wherever you are. Download our free app or visit AccuWeather.com. That's your AccuWeather forecast. I'm Caitlin Lawrence for AM 860, The Answer.
Go, Doc.
And I'm back. This is Dr. Bill, your radio MD. I got Ken with me, and we're doing a show, and a very interesting show, too. So listen up, folks. There's going to be a quiz at the end.
We're in a lot. We got a winner.
We got one.
We got one. Somebody deciphered the answer.
Thank God there's one intelligent listener out there.
That's exactly right. They're paying attention. The question was, Doc does not like the health organization. He's said that many, many times over the last few years, and he referred to it earlier today as what, Doc?
As a left-wing socialist loony organization.
That's right, exactly. And Philip Segrist of Tarpon Springs. I can't read anything today. Philip Segrist of Tarpon Springs, Florida, had the correct answer, and we'll be getting that mug.
That's Philip, Phillip?
That looks like Philip to me. Yes, sir.
All right, Philip. We appreciate you, buddy, and we love you, and we need you, and we want you. We got to have some intelligent listeners out there.
We have mostly intelligent listeners out there.
Yeah, we actually
do. You listen to this show, you're smart.
You have to be pretty highbrow to join Dr. Bill on Sunday for this wonderful hour.
Plus, we go, left to right, left. We're all over the place here as far as direction is concerned and subjects matter, so you got to stay with us. So you got to be intelligent.
I think it's fun to be eclectic and to, broaden your knowledge as much as you can, Ken.
Absolutely.
That's very important, especially if you're going to live in a democracy. And if you haven't had the opportunity to travel and to see the world and to study and all that, you can only do it by doing it yourself, by watching Nat Geo and reading and going to different sites on the web if you have a computer, and looking at things and trying to discern what is real and what isn't, and that's good. I mean, that's part of the exercise.
I've read that it also helps you keep your mind functioning.
Keeps
properly.
you younger.
Yeah.
So that and exercise and 6-pack of beer every night. And
every night?
What? Who said not every night?
How about a glass of wine or two every night? That's good.
There you go. Yeah. And if you don't drink and you don't like drinking, or you have had a problem with drinking, then have some grape juice and go take a walk.
Exactly. It'll relieve any stress you may be feeling.
So, United Healthcare, the big healthcare insurer.
Yeah, they've been in the news recently.
Yeah, it's the biggest one. And that's the guy, the president or the CEO of it was the guy that was assassinated by this wacko who's on trial in New York now.
Correct. Is that trial started already? I don't think it's started.
Yes, they had I think they had the arraignment or the preliminary. Okay. So he was only there for a minute or two, and then he was gone.
It was a plea.
They had him shackled and then in a bulletproof vest, because I'm sure that the families of the assassinated CEO are not happy, and they're probably powerful enough that they could hire just about any hitman they wanted. Not that they would do that, but
no, it's just New York.
Yeah, it's a good show for the New York police too. Look how
absolutely. Yeah.
Look how we're taking care of things here.
Exactly. So, what about United Healthcare? You were going to go somewhere else with that?
Yeah, the Justice Department is investigating them for fraud, and they say that the United Healthcare has built $3.3 billion, at least, in unwarranted claims from the federal government by using a code for hyperaldosteronism without any documentation or substantiation. Now, hyperaldosteronism is a disease where the adrenal gland secretes too much aldosterone. If you look behind me, if you're watching online, the kidneys are the kidney beans, and then the little triangular things on top that are white, Ken, those are the adrenal glands, and they make hormones like aldosterone and cortisol and adrenaline and all kinds of different things that are necessary for our function as a living organism. So secondary hyperaldosteronism means that you have a disease or a medication that you're on or something that is stimulating your adrenal glands to make too much aldosterone. You say, well, what the heck is aldosterone? Aldosterone is a hormone that causes the blood pressure and the levels of sodium to go up, so you retain more salt and you have more blood pressure problems.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
No, and you have frequent urination, you can get headaches, muscle weakness, dizziness, anxiety, edema, redistribution of your body fat, and it can interfere with your renal functions. And what happens is it tells your kidneys to hold on to salt and get rid of potassium. So then when you drop your potassium, that interferes with your normal muscle and heart muscle function. And so you say, well, what causes this? Well, you can have a primary syndrome where you have a tumor in the adrenal glands that secretes too much of this hormone, just like you can have a thyroid hormone that secretes, or tumor that secretes too much thyroid hormone, and that's hyperthyroidism. But with the adrenal gland, you can also stimulate it with medications, with certain diseases, with kidney disease. Different things can cause it to produce more aldosterone because it thinks it has to protect the body by holding on to more salt to keep the blood volume up. So like after trauma, when you've lost blood and you've lost serum, which is basically salt and water with a lot of proteins floating around in it, then we secrete this aldosterone as a protective mechanism to hang on to salt so that can hang on to water so we can increase our volume in our bloodstream. So it's a fascinating phenomena, but what the federal government is saying is that United Healthcare has used this to upcode to, how do I say it there? You get paid more for more complex and more serious diseases. So the more diagnoses you attach to a patient's visit, the more you're going to get reimbursed from Medicare.
That's you're doing more work. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it supposedly means you're doing more work. You're taking on larger responsibilities, and there is some equity in that. It's fair to the doctors who do all this hard work and digging, and I do a lot of hard work and digging for people in finding obscure diseases and making diagnoses that most other doctors have missed. Not that I'm trying to pat myself on the back.
Why not?
But it's just, it's fact.
Nice to know you're a doctor that works really hard for their patients. That's how you get business.
And so they're going after United Healthcare, and they say that United Healthcare told their doctors at their owned clinics, they have their own private clinics, United Healthcare, and they told their doctors to use this code. And so what happens is you have coders back at the insurance company, and they're looking at all the stuff that comes through, and they're looking at the diagnoses and the diagnostic codes attached to them. And then they're going back to the doctors and saying, hey, look, you missed this. You've got heart failure, but you don't have heart failure with edema, or you don't have heart failure with kidney failure, and you need to put that in there too because the patient's in kidney failure. And so the federal government's saying, wait a minute, you don't have any real documentation that there's increased aldosterone in the bloodstream because you don't draw aldosterone levels. And of course, that's the gold standard way of telling if there's too much aldosterone in your system, is to draw a blood sample and check it. And of course, the insurers are saying, well, wait a minute, we can see historically and diagnostically and clinically that if you have these certain conditions and you have these certain symptoms, and that's most likely high aldosterone. federal government's saying, no, you're just upcoding. You're trying to get more money out of us. So we got a fight going on between United Healthcare and the federal government and Medicare and all that, because what happens is United Healthcare is the contractor for Medicare Advantage money that comes to the insurers. So they say, well, we've got 2 million or 10 million Medicare patients that are on the Advantage program and or that are in their system, and so they go to the federal government and say, we want to join and be part of this, and you can do it. I mean, anybody can do it if they have enough volume and fill out all the paperwork. And so then they fill out all the paperwork, and the federal government says, okay, you're our subcontractor for these people, for these 10 million Medicare recipients, and we'll pay you X number of dollars per month per patient, and then you'll get extra for more difficult patients. So, of course, you want to find the most difficult situations you can and get paid for it.
Makes sense. If you're trying to make money, yep.
Yeah, you're trying to make money, and you also want to provide a service. So, but some of the doctors got all pissy and said, well, we're being ramrodded into up-diagnosing and adding diagnoses that we don't think are legitimate. Of course, these are family practitioners and general internists that are working at clinics, and they're not endocrinologists or cardiologists or whatever. But it makes for an interesting fight, and there's probably some truth on both sides that there are a lot of people with hyperaldosteronism that are not diagnosed. And one of the treatments we use for heart failure is an aldosterone blocker, because we know that aldosterone goes up, and we don't have to check because we just know it. And we know clinically that if we give an aldosterone blocker, this helps with the heart failure and improves it. And we've got studies that show that.
So logic would tell you then you've got a higher level in that.
Yeah. So that would be the clinical trial, and of course the trials that are more esoteric have already been done, because years ago people started looking at all the hormones that were floating around the system of people in heart failure, doctors and researchers. And they found by testing the blood that aldosterone levels were higher. And they said, hey, why don't we use an aldosterone blocker? And then everybody said, hey, that worked. So they must have increased aldosterone. I'm not even going to check it. It's just an unnecessary test, because I gave it to the patient and he got better.
That's right. You saw the result. Exactly.
It's, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And
that's right.
And that doesn't mean that clinical trials are the be-all and the end-all. You have to have some real research, some double-blind placebo-controlled trials before you turn it over to the clinical side. And, we have different levels of research projects, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Level 4 or stage 4 of the research plan is when you release a new treatment or medication into the community, then you get feedback from the clinicians that are using it. And they say, yeah, you're right, this does work. Your research was right, because we can see this clinically, an improvement in our patients with this treatment. So that's a legitimate way of approaching a research study and subsequent clinical implementation of what you figure out. Now, things like balance of nature, there's no real research to back up that it does anything other than has a placebo effect, makes you think you're feeling better, and so you get out and walk more and lose a little weight, and all of a sudden you do feel better. You're like, oh, balance of nature did it. No, balance of nature didn't do it.
The walk helped.
That's you.
Yeah. So So is this just a coding problem? I mean, because it sounds like you guys recognize that it's the level of this is too high, and you make adjustments because you just know from your experience you don't have to do that blood test. And they're saying because you haven't done the blood test, you haven't proven that those levels are high enough to be treated.
That's right. And the doctors at these clinics are saying, and we're being coerced into adding this diagnosis when we don't know if it's really true or not, or we don't believe it's true. And what I say is, you got to look at the doctors that are making these complaints and claims about United Healthcare's billing practices. They may or may not be competent to understand what's going on. Because again, I guarantee you that they are not endocrinologists, they're not cardiologists, they're not nephrologists, they're general practitioners, they're family practice and internal medicine for the most part. So I think that there's probably some truth on both sides of the equation, and I'm sure that the insurance companies will try their best to make as much money as they can, and they will tell their coders, you really dig deep, and if you suspect that there is a disease process there and it's not being coded for and we're not getting extra money for it, then you pressure the doctors into doing it. Appropriately or not, the coders are doing that.
Yeah.
And we have the same thing at the hospital. I'm getting queries all the time. Is this acute kidney failure or chronic kidney failure, or is this acute on chronic? Now, you get paid more for acute, and you get paid even more for acute on chronic. So guess which one they're going to want you to click on?
Well, the highest one you can get, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you don't, they'll pester you to death, and they'll send it back again and ask you the question in a different way. I had one patient that was new onset atrial fibrillation, and they sent me a query: is this paroxysmal atrial fibrillation? Is this chronic atrial fibrillation? Is this non-valvular atrial fibrillation? And so I just copied and pasted what I already had in my note, which is new onset atrial fibrillation. Of course, they didn't like that, but they quit pestering me. And I had another query a few years ago. And I had this little old lady in there, and she's been skinny all of her life, but her blood count's normal, her protein levels are normal, everything's normal, but her body mass index was 19 or 20. It was actually in the normal range, which Americans aren't used to seeing anymore. And so they said, is this protein malnutrition, protein calorie malnutrition, mild, moderate, severe? So I went to the CDC website, and I copied the body mass index information with the 19 to 22 is normal. Below 19 is not. That's when you're in the malnutrition range. Over 22 to 25 is okay. 25 to 30 is pre-obesity. Over 30 is obesity. And so I just copied and pasted it with the FDA CDC heading on it and put that into the note. Guess what? They didn't ask me any more questions about that.
How much time of your week do you waste doing things like this, Doc?
Oh, God. I may spend 5 or 10 minutes with a patient and then 20 minutes working on the note and the orders and talking to the nurses and talking to the consultants and, talking to everybody and his brother. And then the spouses come out and they ask you the same questions over and over and over again because people don't know the jargon. They don't understand, and they don't even know the simple terms. So you have to explain everything over and over. And it's always interesting to me to go into a hospital patient room, explain everything to the patient and the family 2 or 3 times, then go outside, leave the door open, and just listen. And they have no idea what you said. And in part, I think it's because it's a strange environment. They're afraid, and it's confusing, and there's a lot of medical terminology that they may not understand that you have to explain to them, and you'll say, "Do you understand?" And they nod their head yes, which means no, they don't understand.
But they're going on Google to get their own answer. So
yeah, and then they go on Google, and they come back and say, "Hey, Google said this." And I said, "Well, let's see Dr. Google cure you."
Yeah.
I had
that response, while perhaps intended to be
oh my God,
what is that, Doc? Is that you or me?
that was the AI on my cell phone that thought I was talking to it. So it's answering me back. I'm like, shut up, I'm not talking to you.
Wait for your name. You don't hear your name.
It's a Budinsky. And it's fascinating dealing with people in that way. Even in the office, you have to explain things over and over and over. And you may have people that are fairly intelligent and people that are not very intelligent. And so you have to learn to talk at multiple levels so that you can try to help people understand and get them to buy into the treatment regimen. And then you have people that won't tell you what's really going on. And if you had your disease, Ken, you can't expect to be cured. And if you don't tell me what medicines you're taking or you don't know, then I'm going to have a hard time adjusting everything and getting everything in balance. And one patient I had in the hospital now, he's been real depressed and down. He's losing weight because he's got a bad hiatal hernia and all kinds of problems. He can't eat. And he said, I've been down for the past 2 months, and I remember I quit my antidepressant 2 months ago. Do you think that has anything to do with it? Yeah. As a matter of fact, I do. Why didn't you tell me?
I shouldn't laugh.
But I don't think people really think that, they think, an antidepressant, that's not really curing anything. Yeah, it is. It's keeping you from killing yourself, dude. Don't stop it. And if you want to get off of it, then let me help you through that by telling you how to wean off of it over a period of several months. Because if you stop it abruptly, you're not going to make serotonin for a while, and you're going to get depressed. And it's the same way with
stuff. I shouldn't laugh. We shouldn't laugh because it can be dangerous.
It can be dangerous, but I think I think that you can learn a lot through humor, and I get a lot of my patients, and I recruit their cooperation and involvement by using humor, and they love coming to the office. They say it's like a comedy show with Myung and I when we're arguing in front of them. She'll call me into the exam room and say, "I'm doing this, this, and this, and what do you think?" I said, "What are you calling me in here for? You've already done it." And then she's like, "Well, and then we go back and forth, and then one of us kicks the other one out. And the patients, they just love it. They're laughing, clapping.
You got to go see the doc. If you don't see the doc, you're going to the wrong doctor. That's all I got to say to you.
And you got to have fun. You got to have fun. Whatever you do in life, have fun. Do what you love and love what you do, Ken.
That's been my philosophy for the last 50 years.
There you go. And you've been happy being a radio man all these years?
Absolutely. Good. When there have been times in my career when I've said, maybe I should be doing something grown up. And I would start thinking and looking at what's available. And I'm going to get physically ill in the process, thinking about not being on the radio. That's how much it's in my blood.
Yeah, and I think that if you are doing something that you love, you'll live longer, you'll be happier, and you'll feel involved, and you'll be more committed to what you're doing. And I guess there's a lot of people that just do a job just to get a paycheck, and they don't like it at all.
Exactly. I'm lucky not to be in that group.
Yeah, and that's sad. I mean, it really is. It's sad to see people that are going to work every day and they're unhappy in what they're doing.
We have people on the air here who are well in their 70s and still enjoying it and still doing a good job. So
yeah, and I think that because the population beneath us is shrinking instead of growing, we're going to have to keep working, Ken. There's not enough people coming behind us to fill all the positions. Even with AI coming along, there's still going to be a lot of work to do.
What am I going to do with my free time? I got nothing to do with my free time. I'm getting bored. So go to work. Have some fun. Because this is where I have my fun is right here.
Yeah. And if you don't want to work, but you like being involved, go to your church. Go to your favorite charity and offer your time and get involved. Do something.
Join community
go out
theater.
Pick up trash on the street, for God's sake.
Join a community theater. That's a lot of fun if you've never done that.
Yeah.
Put on a show.
If you have an acting bent, do that. That's a lot of fun. Being up on stage and having people clap, that's a good feeling.
It is. Exactly. So there's lots you can do out there. You don't sit around and stare at the TV.
Yeah. Put on your game face.
Yeah, but that's why I do this. That's why I plan on doing this until I cannot speak anymore.
Yeah, go out and play ball and win and go put on a show, make some money, have some fun.
That's right, exactly. Doc, we got about 45 seconds left here if you want to plug the business a little bit.
All right. Well, I'm Dr. Bill. I'm your radio MD, and I'm also your favorite hometown doctor. We are at 727-384-6411, 727-384-6411. We're in St. Petersburg, Florida. If you want to see me in person, 6399 38th Avenue North, St. Pete, Florida, across from St. Pete General. And remember, you can see me for a telemedicine visit from anywhere in the world. If you want to see my face, we can do it on Zoom. If you just want to talk and you got a medical problem, we can do it on the phone. A lot of people can't really figure out how to do the Zoom computer thing. That's not easy.
Say bye, Doc.
Bye, Doc.